Welcome back to Take a Leap and Transform, a neurodiversity journey. I'm your host, Joseph K. Muscat. Are you ready to take a leap with me? As we embark on this journey, let me introduce myself as Malta's neurodiversity consultant, Joseph K. Muscat. Where is that coming from? There we go. All right. I've been pioneering in neurodiversity awareness within Malta's business landscape for the last 3 years. During this time, I've engaged in speaking, coaching, and conducting workshops with companies and organizations like Betson, Benna, and AFRJD. This year marks the introduction of Neurodiversity Week to Malta, where we present insights from incredible guests about neurodiversity in the workplace. Now let's leap into our interview. One of the challenges neurodivergents face is managing their executive function, and as part of the brain's responsibility for how we handle everyday tasks. The difference is in development compared to other types of brains brings unique considerations. An essential element of the executive function is self-regulation. But what is self-regulation? And how does it impact students and adults? And how does it connect to executive function? Understanding these dynamics is crucial in creating supportive environments for neurodivergent individuals. To aid me in this, I'm joined by Dr. Erika Galea. Dr. Erika Galea, founder of Educational Neuroscience Hub, got those mixed up, Europe, is dedicated to raising awareness of brain development in education. With over 2 decades of experience, including teaching and leadership roles, she holds a PhD in psychology and human development. As an honorary research fellow at UCL, she specializes in emotional intelligence, offering workshops to enhance teaching effectiveness, creating nurturing classroom environments. Welcome, Dr. Erika Galea.
Hi, Joseph. Thank you for inviting me at such an important event. And celebrating neurodiversity is crucial for promoting inclusivity and understanding within our communities. And by acknowledging and appreciating neurodiversity, we recognize that there is no one standard brain, my favorite word. And I must say that we are all neurodiverse in one way or another because each brain is unique.
Absolutely. And you and I we spoke last year, and it's taken us quite some time for us to finally get this interview going.
Yes.
So I'm entirely grateful for you coming on board.
Busy.
So busy. And I can sympathize. And you have been very busy because you have been going about and educating a lot of the local school systems and their teachers and professionals in that area in regards to self-regulation. So with that said, Erika, what you prefer? If I called you Dr. Erika or Erika?
Erika, just Erika.
Perfect. So Erika, let's start off with telling us about your history with education.
Okay, that's interesting. So, since I was young, I've always had the ambition to be an educator, keen on sharing with others the skills and knowledge I was acquiring, and at the time sharing this with young children. This drove me to pursue a Bachelor in Education honours degree, focusing on early childhood and primary education with English as a secondary specialization at the University of Malta. And then once graduated, I taught students aged 5 to 11 for 10 years. Concurrently, I sought a master's in educational leadership at the University of Leicester, which led to my role as an assistant head at a private school. And there I was responsible for leading curriculum studies, quality assurance, and teacher training over a span of 10 years. Now, during my role as deputy head, then I further extended my studies to a doctorate in psychology and human development, as you said, at the University College London, where I specialize in emotional intelligence with a particular emphasis on emotional regulation. And the focus of my doctoral research was developing a program to train teachers in emotion regulation strategies, enabling them in turn to model these strategies to their students. And these strategies are beneficial not only for student emotion regulation, but also for the educators themselves to manage their own emotions effectively. And because if we are not emotionally regulated as adults, then we cannot possibly regulate others' emotions, and in this case, our students. And this regulation of emotions can happen at the workplace too. Therefore, beyond the educational sector, I conduct workshops on emotional intelligence for corporate organizations too. So through these workshops, participants are equipped with the tools they need to handle emotional challenges, creating a positive atmosphere that promotes individual and collective growth in the workplace, which is a skill noted by the World Economic Forum as essential for the 21st century. Now, going on to educational neuroscience, and to explain what this is, it is the study of the brain within the context of teaching and learning. And I'm focusing on planting the seeds, laying the groundwork for this field in Malta. Unfortunately, there is a huge lack of awareness on simple evidence-based strategies, and these stem from educational neuroscience. And what better strategies to have in hand and adopt based on the study of the brain? Because learning is brain based. So I think and I believe strongly that it's crucial for educators to be aware of some neuroscience to adopt in their classrooms. And even though there's a strong local emphasis on creative teaching methods, I believe it's equally important to learn about how the brain works in education and to use scientifically proven strategies to make teaching more effective and meaningful. Educational neuroscience is crucial not only in early primary and secondary education, because we think of schooling up to that age, but it also extends to post-secondary education and tertiary education and adult lifelong learning. So it shows its importance across all stages of education and development. And since completing my PhD, I established the Educational Neuroscience Hub, and currently serve as its director. And through this hub, I've expanded my initiatives to include privately organized workshops in the science of teaching and learning for both educators and parents and students too. We tend to educate, train teachers. We need to give importance to parents and students too. So I'm doing that nationwide. As you said, I'm teacher training in schools across all sectors, from nursery to post-secondary education as well. I also lecture prospective teachers during their initial teacher training on education and neuroscience at the University of Malta as part of my work as well. And all these strategies, as I said, based on the brain, have received remarkable feedback here locally for their practicality and effectiveness in real life situations. Now I'm actively working on expanding my work by presenting at international educational conferences, publishing peer-reviewed articles, news articles, vlogs, podcasts now, Joseph. And I'm also collaborating with international partners to make educational neuroscience stronger on an international basis through, for instance, Erasmus projects, and also independently as a hub. Those are my main projects. There are many more, but I'll stop here.
Well,
Those are my main projects.
well, thank you very much for showing that. And that's a very incredible, profound
Thorough
CV and career
feedback.
that you've had. But it's led you to where you are today. And it's now, you're now taking the next step, which is a step that I took, which now is doing more media events to get that message out there, as well as to show yourself as a brand and as an expert in your field. Now, you had mentioned, interestingly enough, the aspect of understanding the brain. And I think that's a hugely missed concept when we take a look at education, because it's about just drilling students with information and getting them to pass tests without understanding the brain. And you also talked about, interestingly enough, in regards to how we're seeing that there's this, you stated that education or the development or awareness towards neuroscience and how brains are different doesn't just stop after leaving school. It continues on into post-secondary education, which is funny enough because when I talk to a lot of post-secondary experts in other fields, they're telling me that they're filling in the gap when they're encountering a lot of neurodivergent students who are undiagnosed and have not been diagnosed earlier. So there's this huge gap of not understanding the brain much earlier, where post-secondary is trying to fill that gap. So with that commentary said, you have stated that you focus on emotional regulation, which is connected to executive function. Can you give us and start off with clearly defining those two areas?
So, yes, emotional regulation and executive function are closely related aspects of cognitive processing and psychological development, each playing a crucial role in how individuals perceive and explore the world around them. In fact, emotion regulation is an executive function skill. They're not separated. Executive function skill is the umbrella term. Emotion regulation is one of the executive function skills. So let me start off with defining executive function, since that is, as I said, the umbrella term for all our higher order cognitive skills, such as critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, and so on. There are many, many higher order skills, but which also includes emotion regulation, as I said. And executive function skills are found in our prefrontal cortex, which is the front part of our brain, okay, which is what we call the thinking part of our brain. Executive functions encompasses a set of cognitive processes that are necessary for the cognitive control of our behavior. And examples of these processes include working memory, critical thinking, problem solving, cognitive flexibility, which we need both at school and our place of work. Metacognition, for example, thinking about our thinking or thinking about our learning processes. And inhibitory control, which is that part of the brain that allows self-control, which is very important. There are many, many more, but these are the main ones. And I mentioned these as examples. Executive function enables individuals to plan, focus attention, remember instructions, and task switch efficiently. It is what we call the brain's management system that helps manage thoughts and actions in line with our life goals. Now, emotion regulation. Onto emotion regulation, which is one of the executive function skills, again found in our thinking part of our brain, refers to the processes by which individuals influence which emotions they have, when they have them, and how they experience and express these emotions. And it's a critical component of emotional intelligence and involves the ability to manage and respond to an emotional experience in a healthy and appropriate manner. Emotion regulation allows individuals to handle stress, which is very important, control impulses, and handle complex social or challenging situations by modifying their emotional responses in accordance with the demands of the occurring situation that they find themselves in. Now, what is the connection between emotion regulation and executive function? So the connection between these two elements lies in their shared role in managing thoughts, behaviors, and emotions effectively. And as previously mentioned, emotion regulation is considered an aspect of executive function, since regulating emotions requires the ability to inhibit or to stop those impulsive responses, which we call in neuroscience inhibitory control. Emotion regulation also allows us to switch between different perspectives or the way we see or perceive things, situations, or strategies, what we call cognitive flexibility. Emotion regulation also maintains relevant emotional information in the working memory. So if this situation had to happen again in the future, we would know how we would have tackled it, would know how we would have tackled the situation before. And, if in the past our strategies were successful, we would adopt these same strategies to tackle that situation that we're in. So together, these abilities I have just discussed result in adaptive responses, adaptive behavior to the various situations we come across or face. And this enhances our decision-making, social interactions, and overall well-being.
Interesting.
I hope
You did it very well.
trying to explain
You did it very well. And you really give a
simply.
very good outline. And I always say it's always fascinating that as much as you know the subject, you always learn something new. And hearing you give a far more in-depth explanation, I've learned a few new things from what I already knew. And particularly in how self-regulation actually affects working memory, because I have a particular working memory challenge. And that's interesting in the aspect. I think the only 2 points I would add to that is the aspect of one, executive function, as you pointed out, also relates to being able to do everyday tasks. And this is why
Yes.
neurodivergents tend to struggle with such things as time management or being able to follow instructions, because those are all related to various elements or being organizations, for example, are all elements related to executive function. I think the other thing to point out as well is that when we take a look at brain development goes from the rear to the front. So the frontal lobe is the last part of the brain to be developed. And in that sense, it's not fully developed until an individual is about 25 to 30 years old. Now, for
Yes.
someone who's neurodivergent, that's by the medical term, and I don't like the medical term, it will be seen as being dysfunctional, not being fully developed. I see it as more as the natural development for someone who's neurodivergent.
Exactly, who's
Right.
neuroatypical.
And
Exactly.
we can debate that, and or whoever wants to debate that can debate that on their own time. But there's the two differences. It's either dysfunctional or it's a natural development. But in the end of the day, however you want to look at it from those lenses, for someone who's neurodivergent, they're they're going to have those particular challenges based
Yes.
on the neurotypical standards. Um, Now you focus, sorry, I want to break this down further. First, from an educational perspective, what do educators need to understand about emotional regulation?
Okay, interesting question, Joseph. I've got a whole workshop on this 4-hour workshop. So, from an education perspective, educators need to grasp several key aspects of emotion regulation to effectively support their students' learning and development. So, first is the impact it has on learning. Educators, and I'm not going to get tired saying this, have to understand that a student's ability to regulate their emotions directly affects their learning process. So, emotion and cognition, emotion and thinking are linked, are interlinked. We tend in the class to treat them as separate. And when we treat them as separate, we tend to suppress our students' emotions. And this also happens at the workplace. Okay, we need to take note of emotions because emotions is linked to learning or working at the workplace. Now, emotions influence attention, memory, and decision making, which are crucial for academic success in school or at the workplace. For instance, anxiety can impair working memory and hinder students from learning, whilst positive emotions can enhance engagement and motivation. So that was my first aspect. Second, and this is really crucial for educators and employers to understand, the behavior is the result of the emotion felt by that individual facing an emotionally challenging situation. And this is very important for us to keep in mind. So, how do we diminish or try and eradicate that behavior? And we do so by delving deep beneath the behavior and tackling the emotion. And once we address that emotion felt by being conscious of it, acknowledging it, and identifying it, we often find that the related behavior either diminishes or disappears. However, effectiveness increases when we take an additional step to regulate that emotion. So, after identifying it and acknowledging it, we need to then regulate. So, this involves employing various emotion regulation strategies, which I will explore further later in our talk. Given the uniqueness of each individual, some may require more time than others to learn how to regulate their emotions effectively, resulting in a longer process for the behavior to adjust. So each individual would have their own pace and timing to learn how to self-regulate their emotions. Another element that teachers need to keep in mind is the individual differences. As I said, every brain is unique. Okay. Students vary greatly in their emotion regulation abilities, and these differences can be due to a range of factors, including developmental stage, personality, background, or neurotypical or neurodivergent factors. So, recognizing and respecting these individual differences is crucial for educators to support all students effectively. Moreover, the classroom environment and the quality of interaction between educators and students is a very critical factor that can either hinder or enhance emotional regulation. Creating a supportive, empathetic, and responsive educational setting can significantly improve students' abilities to manage their emotions, thereby then developing better academic and social outcomes. So if the child is feeling safe, secure, feeling that psychological safety, comfortable in class, they tend to learn better and internalize information faster. However, educators must be equipped with these explicit strategies for teaching emotional regulation, such as educating students about the connection that exists between emotion and learning. And something that which is another workshop of mine, teaching them emotional literacy. And I cannot emphasize this enough. We get many students in our classrooms who don't know how to express themselves. You ask them, what are you feeling? And they stare at you and tell you, I don't know. I don't know what I'm feeling. So we really need to teach our students from a very young, or our children by parents, because parents have a very crucial role in this. Okay, we need to teach our children from a very young age how to express themselves by acknowledging and identifying their emotions, discussing them, and then modeling regulation of emotion. So integrating emotion regulation into the curriculum is another vital aspect. So we tend to focus on maths, English, in our case, Maltese, languages, and sciences. Yes, but emotion regulation is a skill, like a mathematical skill. It's just as important as a mathematical skill, or trying to learn a comprehension skill. You know, it's a vital aspect which needs to be taught in the classroom from a very young age. So when these children go into the world of work, they are emotionally regulated to take on the stresses of their workplace and emotionally self-regulated. Finally, ongoing professional development in emotion regulation is crucial. We tend to organize PD sessions on multiculturalism, on numeracy, on content, curriculum. I'm not saying that's wrong, but we need to also focus on socio-emotional skills. So ongoing professional development and emotion regulation is essential for educators, and such opportunities enable them to stay updated of the latest research and best evidence-based practices, ensuring they are well equipped to support their students' emotional and academic growth effectively.
Wow, that is a lot of points that you've given there. And
Yes, I'm cognitively overloading you at the moment.
it is, but I'm just sitting here listening very attentively and making my notes, and I'm at the same time kind of reliving what my education was like and how the environment and how my emotions impacted my learning and the lack of skills that the educators in the system had, as well as my parents. Because you're right, it is a two-pronged approach. And I'm also now thinking as an adult, the challenges I still have with my self-regulation and how I interact with my wife and my child, and perhaps others as well. It, you've readily highlighted, this internal thinking and dialogue
Mm-hmm.
and giving an understanding. But one of the things that I really pointed out is one of the first points or the second points is that we're constantly, as educators, as parents, as society, is that we're trying to constantly correct the behavior. It's always the behavior is the problem.
Yes.
And what you've highlighted is that the behavior is just the
It's the
surface.
result
It's the
of
surface
the
level,
emotion.
right? Exactly. It's
Yes.
it's just the surface level. You have to go beyond the behavior to understand the emotional and how what's triggering that emotional response. And how can we, I know you talked about, and I totally agree with you, your last point, continuous development of educators, because we do focus too much on, as much as important as they are on math and sciences, we're not focusing on neurodiversity or neurodivergent development, executive function development, and training towards teachers and emotional regulation. Um, how can, my question here is, um, how how can we get the education system to start adapting this inclusion of this type of training?
How can we start? I mean, there's definitely a change in mindset on part of the teachers and parents. I'm always going to get parents in because, as I mentioned before we started our session, parents are the most crucial role in our students' lives. They're with them most of the time. And I'm going to talk in general.
Mhm.
We tend to we're trying to shift our responsibility onto the teacher, and
Right.
the dynamics of the teacher role is changing drastically at a very fast pace,
True.
and we're expecting them to discipline the children, regulate their emotions, teach them, but the teacher can't do it all in the classroom. The teacher
Especially,
has 20 to 25 kids with each of their own needs, and the teacher's role in the classroom is becoming very demanding, and we
mm,
need to understand this. Us parents need to have we need to be on board more than the teacher. They're our children. We need to parents need to get trained. Parents need to be trained on these aspects of educational neuroscience, and once trained, you know um, there'd be awareness and hopefully a change in mindset. There needs to be a change in mindset, parents and even teachers, because parents and teachers need to work hand in hand. And students, we need to empower our students by teaching them these skills. Because as they grow older, they need to become empowered learners, independent learners. They cannot rely on their teachers or their parents. As they grow older, they need to become independent learners, and we need to teach them how to. We need to teach them study skills, how to regulate their emotions, self-regulated learning. These skills are really, really important in schools. And once we teach them these skills, it will be all easy. It will be easier for both the teacher and the parent at the end of the day.
yeah, absolutely. I agree with all your points, and I was you said it as I was about to chime in regards to the class size rooms. What one
Yes.
teacher versus 30 students. Now, very quickly, I'm going to throw an additional question here because
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you. Parents need to be on board 100%. As I said to you during our prep talk, I'm currently in the process of working with a school where we're trying to come up with that three-prong approach. And you've mentioned those three-prong approach: teachers, students, and parents. With that said, parents can be resistant in saying that there's nothing wrong with their child and not wanting to not wanting to get on board and supporting the parent or the school and saying that it's the teacher's responsibility. If you can, very quickly, how can we overcome that hurdle?
As I said, the first thing we need to do is, as a senior leadership team, past senior leadership team member in a school, we always got the parents on board to school to explain our perspective of things. And most of the time they were on board, and it would be the minority that wouldn't be on board. So the school still moves forward with trying to find strategies or keep on implementing the strategies that we were using that would be helping the child during the teaching and learning process. However, I believe that training parents is is crucial, because once you train parents, you are making them aware of certain things. When I give my emotion regulation workshops to educators, most of them are parents, and they come up to me and tell me, "You've made me aware of so many things, not only as an educator, but also as a parent. And I can use these skills both on myself and my children at home, and make them realize that they need to tweak their parenting skills." So I think awareness training and awareness through training is really crucial.
So
Um,
when would you say then, again, just to give some sort of time frame, because I know you said as early as possible, shall parent training be happening while their child is or children's in nursery? Should it be happening prior to being married? Like, when should this training should ideally take place?
when it comes to emotion regulation, which for me is the most crucial skill, life skill, because without being emotionally regulated, we do not function well.
Hmm.
So I think emotion regulation is the basis of everything. Um, and as I said before, it has to start from 0+. So regulating emotions is about modeling behavior, modeling emotion regulation strategies to our children.
Hmm.
So it has to start from when parents before birth. Before
Okay.
birth, because from 0+, we need to start modeling these emotion regulation strategies, interacting with our child and modeling proper emotion regulation. So from early years, very, very and it's never too late, though.
Hmm.
Even if they're older, it's not too late to regulate our emotions when we're adults either. Obviously, when we come to a point where we can't handle it ourselves, I urge people to go and seek help, either at a psychotherapist or a psychologist, to help them, to give them the skills, because it can lead to disorders such as high anxiety, depression, or even further suicide or suicidal attempts.
Or
So
suicidal
if we need
thoughts.
to go even further, to go up
Hmm.
a higher level. Um, so we need to start from a very, very young age. Yes. And I think in this case, the parent is more crucial than the teacher.
Agreed. 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 And I'm as you're speaking again, I'm relating to myself the anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts. I can see, all that relating to what you're talking about. So then, in this regards, then, is there a difference between emotional regulation between a neurotypical, which is for those who are listening, considered to be the standard normal because they're the neo majority, versus a neurodivergent? How does self-regulation look between those two groups?
Okay, so there are notable differences in emotion regulation between neurotypical individuals and those who are neurodivergent. So for neurotypical individuals, emotion regulation tends to follow a developmental trajectory that is generally speaking predictable, with skills in managing and responding to emotions maturing through childhood and into adulthood. So these individuals typically learn to handle their emotional experiences in ways that are considered normative or average in our lay terms, using a range of strategies for coping with stress, managing anger, or seeking social support. So, for neurodivergent individuals, emotion regulation can present unique challenges and differences. For instance, individuals with autism spectrum disorder may experience heightened sensitivity to sensory inputs or have difficulty interpreting social cues, which can impact their emotional responses and make regulation more challenging. They might struggle with understanding or expressing their emotions in ways that others expect, leading to misunderstanding or increased emotional states. Those with ADHD may find impulse control and attention regulation difficult, impacting their ability to manage emotional responses effectively. And they might experience emotions more intensely and have trouble delaying gratification or managing frustration, leading to quick shifts in mood or difficulty maintaining emotional stability. Individuals with dyslexia or other learning difficulties may encounter heightened anxiety or frustration related to academic challenges, which can affect self-esteem and emotional well-being. And these experiences can make emotion regulation more complex, requiring additional support to develop effective coping strategies. So it is really important to recognize that neurodivergent individuals may not only face challenges in emotion regulation, but also may develop unique strengths and strategies. For example, they might have deep passions and interests that provide comfort and joy to them. So, using creative problem solving approaches or form strong empathetic connections based on shared experiences.
Fantastic. So, yeah, I would add there, when you talk about the particular challenges, let's say someone who has dyslexia or ADHD in the classroom because of their emotional regulation, I would subtract classroom and then add in workplace because it will be
Yes,
the
as well.
same. It would be the same thing, which then
Same
brings
thing.
into to the next question, because when we're looking at workplace and classroom, how does emotional regulation look differently in adulthood versus childhood?
Emotion regulation undergoes a transformation from childhood to adulthood, shaped by cognitive maturation, social contexts, and individual experiences. Now, during childhood, emotion regulation is primarily developmental. So, children are at the initial phase of recognizing, understanding, and controlling their feelings, a process significantly influenced by their environment, interactions with their caregivers, and this is so important. The interaction with caregivers is very influential, be it their teachers, parents, or guardians. And we also need to include their temperamental traits. So, the role of adults is crucial at this stage as they model emotional regulation strategies and guide children in developing coping strategies. Now, we must remember, and we need to not forget this, that children's prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of their brain, is still developing. And as you said, it keeps developing till the age of 26. Okay, approximately 26 years of age. So you can imagine how not mature the prefrontal cortex is at 4 years of age or 5 years of age. Therefore, they would need an expert emotion regulator to model emotion regulation strategies. And educational settings therefore play a vital role introducing structured opportunities for children to practice emotion regulation in emotionally challenging situations that crop up in the classroom and in school. However, it's important to emphasize, as I always do in all my workshops and when interviewed, again, and I'm going to mention it again, that the role of the parent is equally crucial, if not more so, because the educator can't do it all. Now transitioning into adulthood, emotional regulation becomes more refined and internalized thanks to advanced cognitive development and accumulated life experiences, because through these life experiences we learn how to trial and test strategies continuously until we find a strategy that works and is effective to regulate those emotions. So adults have a broader repertoire of coping strategies and are generally better equipped to handle emotional stresses. Now, this capability allows for a better understanding of our emotional experiences and the application of emotional regulation strategies. As I mentioned before, I'm going to mention some emotion regulation strategies once we're discussing them. And one very effective strategy is cognitive reappraisal, where you change or reframe the way you think about or perceive a situation in order to alter or change your emotional response to it. It's like looking at a situation from a different perspective to feel better or more positive about it. Moreover, adults are expected to manage their emotions in a variety of professional and personal contexts, keeping by societal norms that expect acceptable emotional expressions. So, learning to control emotions from being a child to becoming an adult doesn't happen the same way for everyone. Everyone is different. Everyone's brain is unique. I keep saying this. People are different because of their personality, what they've been through in life. Okay, that is their life experience and where they come from. And this means some might find it harder to manage their feelings even when they're adults, and they might need that extra help. And it's important to understand these differences so we can give the right kind of support to everyone, helping them deal with their emotions in a healthy way throughout their life. And again, I say and emphasize the critical importance of seeking help if managing one's emotions becomes overwhelmingly difficult at any point. There is nothing wrong in seeking help.
Absolutely. And I think it's also important to note when we look at executive function, we also have to take into account that because, again, I don't like the term for neurodivergence, the development even at age 26. I mean, it's always funny. I hear 25, I've heard 30. So now I'm hearing 26. It's always in between. There's no clear definition.
Approximate. There isn't. Everyone develops differently, but the approximate age is at that time is that age. It's
Absolutely.
approximate.
Is that we also have to take into account for someone who's neurodivergent is that based on the research is that they're 30 that they'll be 30% behind. So if you have a 10-year-old, they will be actually at a 7-year-old level based on their frontal lobe executive function development. Now you mentioned in regards to adults is that they're able to manage. But again, if they're having, again, don't like the term, dysfunctional executive function, they may have particular challenges, as you mentioned, in handling that and managing their emotional regulation. Is there particular advice that you can suggest in helping to manage as an adult?
When it comes to the workplace and in life, managing emotions is you need to train yourself to regulate your emotions. You need to know and be aware of emotion regulation strategies. One can research about this or else again seek help, not to fix things only, but to learn emotion regulation strategies so that these strategies can be modeled and internalized to then result in self-regulation and training as well. Training helps because training makes adults aware of certain aspects. And when it comes to training based on neuroscience, you can see how the brain functions with regards to, let's say, in this instance, emotion regulation or executive function, and with that awareness, and knowledge, not only awareness, but also knowledge about how certain parts of the brain function and why, you can tweak your coping strategies, your everyday coping strategies. But it takes training, it takes thought and training. When I started researching about these emotion regulation strategies, sorry, I said to myself, I need to train myself on this myself for me to coach other people. Sorry.
It's okay.
So I started training myself on regulating my own emotions. There are strategies which I had been using and I wasn't conscious of, but once you're aware, you then can structure your strategies. But there are where other strategies I wasn't aware of, which are more effective, and I took on. And with training, once you start training yourself how to regulate your emotions, then it's internalized and becomes your way of life. Then obviously it depends on the situation that you're in. If you've come across a major situation that you've never come across in life and you've never handled it in the past, you obviously are going to be emotionally, what we say, dysregulated for that time, but you need to take on the strategies and regulate your emotions. It's not easy. You need to train yourself.
Yeah,
It's not easy.
I can completely relate to what you're saying. It's not easy. So I know you gave a few examples earlier. Let's try to get some a little bit more defined examples. And in that aspect, what would you say are some of the causes of emotional regulation in the classroom versus the workplace?
Okay, so emotion regulation in schools and at work is influenced by different things in each place. So in schools, how well students can handle their emotions is affected by their age and how mature they are emotionally and cognitively. As mentioned previously, some might struggle more than others. How students get along with each other and their teachers can also make a big difference. And good relationships can create a supportive space, while not so good ones can make things harder. Also, the stress from schoolwork and the need to do well can make it tough for students to keep their emotions in check, especially during important tests or projects, which we tend to focus on locally in our educational system. At work, things look a bit different. The work environment usually expects adults to have better control over their emotions, to keep things professional and the workplace running smoothly. Stress from the job or how people get along with their co-workers and their bosses and the company's culture can all affect how well employees manage their emotions. Dealing with deadlines, reviews, and any issues with co-worker means workers need to use more advanced ways to handle stress and emotions. However, the strategies and the skills for managing emotions are important in both places. In schools, teachers can show students how to deal with their emotions and make it part of their learning, their everyday interaction with their students. At work, though, people are expected, as I said, to already know how to handle their emotions and relationships. However, this should not be overlooked and taken for granted. Adults carry their own emotional baggage to work, which means that emotion regulation is still very crucial and necessary in the workplace. By becoming aware and participating in training, employers and their staff can support one another in managing emotions by implementing emotion regulation strategies. So it's not doomsday for adults who struggle with emotion regulation. Individuals can still learn how to regulate their emotions even in adulthood. And this could be done, as I said before, through professional development training or through guidance and support by a therapist. As I said, people all have their emotional baggages that they take with them to work. And I think both co-workers and top people in organizations need to take it in consideration that everyone has their own emotional baggage and to regulate emotions both between top people and their team and also between co-workers. This can happen. But
Absolutely.
training needs to awareness and training.
Well, that delves into, and it's a good segue into our second last question. When we take we've seen, thankfully, thanks to COVID. Prior to COVID, there was banging on doors, and now I think we're starting to see it dwindle away again because the COVID situation's over. But during that time, mental health finally got the attention it needed in the workplace. But what you're saying though is that there's, and rightly so, we cannot let that dwindle. We need to have a continuous focus on mental health in the workplace, particularly when we take a look at self-regulation and executive function for neurodivergent talent. So you talked about getting from top down and more training. How can employers and managers and HR do better to support neurodivergence and their emotional regulation challenges?
They can do so by creating inclusive and accommodating workplace environments. And this includes offering adaptive training sessions, as I said, that educate their staff on neurodiversity and the unique challenges faced by neurodivergent employees, emphasizing the importance of empathy and understanding. Two important factors at the workplace: empathy and understanding. Implementing flexible work policies such as adjustable schedules or the option to work from home can also significantly help those who might struggle with traditional office settings. Providing access to resources like counseling services or stress management workshops can further help in emotion regulation. Additionally, designing quiet spaces within the workplace for employees to retreat when overwhelmed can be beneficial. But more importantly, and I mentioned this previously, that all staff in the workplace co-regulate. Now, what is this co-regulation? Co-regulation is the interaction between employees or between the employer and the employee with the purpose of emotionally regulating the less regulated individual. So that is the co-regulation, the interaction to be able to regulate the other's emotions.
Hmm.
Obviously, to do that, you need to be aware and prompt that the other person is emotionally unstable, emotionally dysregulated. So all staff co-regulate to help each other's emotions, adopting specific emotion regulation strategies. It's also crucial for leadership to promote a culture of open communication where employees feel safe to express their needs and seek support without fear of judgment. By taking these proactive steps, employers and HR can ensure a supportive environment that values and accommodates the diverse needs of all employees, including those with neurodivergences.
And the same thing, obviously, not just towards self-regulation, but what you're saying also equally applies to providing the
So,
adequate support for executive function.
yes, definitely.
So
I
coming,
think
no, go
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 ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
It's the same. The same applies.
Mm.
The strategies or apply different approaches apply for executive function as well, not only emotional regulation.
Mm. So coming back onto to neuroscience as a whole, why is it essential for business leaders and the people they employ to understand neuroscience and the benefits to their business?
Okay, I like this question too. So, understanding neuroscience is crucial for business leaders and their employees because it offers deep insights into human behavior, decision making, and emotion regulation, all of which are important to the workplace. Neuroscience can shed light on how stress impacts productivity, the importance of mental well-being for creativity and innovation, and the ways in which a supportive work environment can enhance cognitive functions and also team dynamics. By applying neuroscientific principles, businesses can develop a more effective leadership approach, create a culture of resilience, flexibility, and adaptability, and create strategies that align with the natural ways the brain functions to improve employee engagement and satisfaction. Additionally, knowledge of neuroscience can help in designing training programs that are more aligned with how people learn and retain information, leading to more efficient skill acquisition and professional development. Ultimately, integrating neuroscience into business practices not only benefits the psychological and emotional health of employees, but also contributes to the overall success and competitiveness of the business.
So,
which is important. Which is important.
Very important. Now we've covered a lot of ground, Erika, and very a fountain of information has come your way. And with that said, you, as you stated earlier, you have a background in education as well as your PhD in your business practice. So I have a question for you. And I've been wanting someone from the education community to try to answer this question. And to date, I haven't been given a direct answer. And to be fair, neither has the business community. I often argue, why don't educational institutions, should I say, bridge the gap informing businesses that one-fourth of their student population is neurodivergent?
This is a question worse than my PhD viva. No, I'm joking. So now bridging the gap for neurodivergent students who account for a quarter of the student population, as you say, to ensure they are ready for the workforce, but also more importantly for life, requires a multifaceted approach that merges education, employment, and inclusivity. We need to get these three factors together. There needs to be a bridge built between education and employment. The challenge lies in acknowledging and developing the unique abilities and perspectives of neurodivergent individuals, which are often either overlooked or underutilized in traditional business models. Educational institutions play a crucial role in preparing students for the workforce and for life. Yet there seems to be a missed opportunity in directly connecting this diverse talent pool with the business world through dedicated initiatives or enterprises. And this gap suggests a broader need for systemic change, including increased awareness, collaboration, and innovation to create inclusive environments where neurodivergent individuals can thrive and contribute to their unique skills to society and the economy, because they also have unique skills which neurotypical individuals might not have. Developing such connections not only benefits neurodivergent students, but can also lead to more diverse, creative, and resilient business practices. I can say that educational neuroscience will facilitate narrow this gap we are discussing if its strategies and methodologies are taken on in the classrooms, at schools, and then eventually in the workplace. The aim of educational neuroscience is to improve learning, whether at school or in the workplace, because at the workplace we're constantly learning too, based on scientific evidence. However, it is not a cure-all or the sole solution, but it does promise to find out how we can best support all our learners in the schools and employees at the workplace.
Yeah, I mean that requires a reform of the system, and which I've been advocating in different forms. I mean, it's the same thing, during our prep talk, again, we were talking before we went live, my conversations with post-secondary institutions with colleagues in my field are saying that they're filling in the gap in regards to having undiagnosed post-secondary students who are neurodivergent, who are not diagnosed before coming to post-secondary. So there's that missing gap there. And then we have the gap again where, the workplace is expecting that the people that they're hiring is ready to work coming out of post-secondary, without realizing that in the education system, they've had a level of support which the workplace is not providing. So this is a huge gap that needs to get filled to be able to create that holistic approach that we're talking about here.
as I said, it has to start from early years. If we introduce skills in schools rather than delivering content, the gap narrows extensively. We tend to, I'm talking in general because there are very good teachers out there who try their best to deliver skills through the content that they need to present. However, our focus is very content-based here locally. There has been a change, a shift to skill-based learning, but there is a lot of work to be done. If we start from a very young age teaching our students skills rather than content, okay, and educational neuroscience, the science of teaching and learning presents these skills like metacognition, being aware of what a growth mindset is, emotion regulation, self-regulated behavior. I keep repeating these same skills because they're so important. If we teach them from a very young age, students will be empowered to be independent learners and to think, to be proactive and to think independently. They could start thinking critically, problem-solving skills, creativity, all from a very young age, which the industry is looking out for, even emotional intelligence. Industries are looking out for emotionally intelligent individuals to hire, and also who are able to work in a team. These are the skills that they're looking out for. Content is gets outdated by the time our students leave school.
Mm-hmm.
Let's teach our students skills, not content.
And not only that, though, but the content gets outdated by the time the book is published. So, or the textbook is published. So you have that to deal with as well. I mean, and what I would add to that is, yes, we need early intervention. But with that said, though, we need to provide the proper coaching and support systems for adults because there's no turning back the clock. We need to be able to have, as you mentioned, seeking out therapy, seeking out coaching, developing those skills continuously.
Yeah,
continuously. Because we can't turn back the clock, and we have people such as myself who are working, developing their businesses in the workplace where there's no, they have to develop now, not yesterday. So lastly, Erika, I know you mentioned earlier, and I want to just bring it back to this, is tell us a little bit about your business and how you can assist educators and businesses on how they can get in touch with you.
Okay, so I established the Educational Neuroscience Hub following a notable lack in the adoption of evidence-based pedagogy here locally in schools across all sectors and in other educational institutions. Educational neuroscience offers strategies that are based on the study of the brain, therefore they are scientifically proven, simultaneously offering the 21st century skills needed to prepare our students for the working industry that we were talking about, and more importantly, for life. Everything we learn, whether in school or at work, starts with the brain. So it's important to understand how the brain functions and how we can use this understanding to change behavior for the better by adopting these scientific strategies. At the start of every workshop I run, I tell teachers that using education neuroscience doesn't mean they have to change the curriculum or do more paperwork. It's all about being more aware of what works, the evidence-based strategies and methodologies to use in the classroom, because we are ultimately understanding how the students learn. And by doing this, we're getting our future generations ready for the workforce, bridging a gap between classroom preparation and what employers actually look for. These are also life skills we need to teach our students as well. However, and I'd like to mention this, my main worry is this locally. Educational neuroscience is an exciting, current, and innovative subject that is gaining attention on the island, especially with efforts to apply its findings in practice, which is a positive thing because it is our ultimate goal, and that is what we want to happen in our educational system, for transformation and improvement to happen based on research. However, this comes with potential pitfalls or disadvantages without the guidance, and I'm going to emphasize this, of expert neuroscientists who possess a comprehensive understanding of the field, who understands the topic in depth and breadth. There's a significant risk of misinterpretation and misapplication of the knowledge. Such scenarios can lead to neuromyths, and neuromyths are misconceptions about the brain, resulting in harming rather than enhancing the field with evidence-based and scientifically proven findings. And this is precisely how neuromyths continue to prevail, potentially making matters worse and harming the teaching and learning process in the meantime, rather than resolving them. So it is crucial that expert neuroscientists are referred to when needed. And to find out more about evidence-based strategies, they can visit my blog on www.educationalneurosciencehub.com. There they have the option to either read blog posts or listen to interviews with world-renowned educational neuroscientists discussing educational strategies, all of which I've personally conducted. If they're interested in educational neuroscience workshops, they can reach me via email on Erika Galea at educationalneurosciencehub.com. And thank you, Joseph, for having me here.
Well, thank
So I
you,
really
Erika.
enjoyed discussing these very important aspects with you.
Thank you so much, and so did I. And I completely agree with what you said in regards to ensuring that you have the right people who
Yes,
know about neuroscience, and the same thing could be said about neurodiversity, having the right
exactly.
people, because you'll
Yes,
end up with the wrong information, the wrong assumptions, and also in the workplace, you will end up with a checkbox approach rather than a more holistic approach that will create a better work environment.
That's another different interview, Joseph.
Yes.
Topic about the check boxes and putting our students in boxes. Yes.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this enlightening conversation, I extend my appreciation and thank you to you, Dr. Erika Galea, for sharing your knowledge and expertise in raising awareness for individuals, educators, and businesses in supporting neurodivergency. We have one more day of Neurodiversity Week Malta. Join me tomorrow for my last two interviews, where I'll be joined by Daphne and Dietrich from Belgium, who run a fellow neurodiversity consulting company, educating businesses, and we'll get their European Belgian perspective. And then I will be joined by Dragan Dunkov, who is Malta's local coach and has worked with coaching neurodivergent individuals. And particularly, we'll be talking about how to create a more supportive coaching environment within the workplace. Till next time, take a leap and transform.